Welcome to the Bayou City Soccer Podcast. Whether inside or outside the loop, we are talking everything soccer in Houston. Y'all ready? Let's get it. Houston, welcome to another episode of the Bayou City Soccer Podcast. My name is Rudy. I hope you guys miss me because I miss you guys. It's been 2 weeks since I've been in the stream. Christian took over and he did a fantastic job. And because of that, we rewarded him with a day off. So no Christian today, but I am not alone. I am joined, by Madelyn Stewart. Maddie, welcome to the show. I think you're becoming a regular and we love it.
Yes, I love being here.
Great. So we'll be talking, obviously, we would love to be talking playoffs, obviously, they're happening right now. But we are smarter than that, knowing the reality of the team. But we are also joined by Juan Pereira. Juan, welcome to the show. Glad that you are here with us, man.
Hey, thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I listen to the show all the time. Glad to finally be a part of it.
Yeah, man. Happy to have you. Happy to have Madeline here. I know that, as I mentioned earlier, I've been out for 2 weeks now. I know Christian wanted to be here so I could let him know of all the scouting that I did in Europe for the Houston Dynamo. But we'll let him figure it out on his own. But no, I am glad. I'm glad to be back. I did take a week vacation out in London, so I can't say anything, but there's 10-year-olds that could probably start for the Houston Dynamo, so we'll leave it at that. But great to be back. I know that it wasn't the best of times, as we saw the team struggle the last 2 matches of the season before I left, and obviously that, you take a clean sheet, scoreless draw to end the season, but obviously knowing that the team wasn't going to go into the postseason, you would have liked for them to get a win, just to close it out. But you know what? You didn't lose, so I think it's a win-win at that rate.
I think that's what the Kansas City supporters thought too.
Exactly. It can't get any worse. So this is where we're at. It's great to, I guess, for everybody who's been following the team and covering the team like we do. We understood the writing was on the wall of the team not necessarily making the playoffs. If they would have made it, it was going to be a very it was going to take a miracle for them to make it, and it just didn't happen. It doesn't pan out. It was a very disappointing season, to say the least. But at the end of the day, you hit the offseason. The offseason started really quick. I think we were kind of surprised to see them give out roster decisions so fast, right? I think it was by Monday or Tuesday we already knew exactly what was happening, and that's what we're gonna discuss here today. But before I get any further, Juan, I know this is the first time you join us, so I just want you don't have to go full season of what happened with the Houston Dynamo, but what are your thoughts as the season progressed? And, it didn't get any better and reinforcement didn't appear. So, are you extremely disappointed that the team didn't make the playoffs, or it was better that they didn't at some rate?
I think we all expected playoffs, right? So I guess from that point, it was a failure, and I don't think there's any shying around that. However, I do feel like, and Ben Olsen touched on this near the end of the season, the pieces are there to build a competitive team next year right away. But I think that starts with him and the front office actually bringing in the reinforcements that the team needs. Because, when we started this year, I felt like the writing was kind of on the wall. When you bring up Femi Awodesu from the second team, a lot of rotation and not really figuring out the squad. I felt like that was the big issue. Ben Olsen likes to rely on a certain 11, and he never really figured it out until the very end of the year. So I feel like from that point, and I know the injury to Quiñones, him being out for the entire year, also hurt a lot in terms of like depth on the wings. But I felt like it was a combination of those things, and also creativity was missing. Like the Dynamo, it came from 2023 of this new idea of the box midfield that everybody was so excited about. Then in 2024, it still had like that similar, those ideals were still there and they got points, but you could tell like teams were starting to catch on. And then this year it just blew up on their faces, and with no creativity, it just led to a downward spiral. So I wasn't really surprised.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of what you said, but I think Madelyn, it was really it came down to the quality of the players as well. That you lose top talent, right? It's not easy to let go of the best player in CONCACAF and Coco Carrasquilla. It's not easy
Yeah.
to let go Hector Herrera, the captain of the Mexican national team, for a good while, especially in the World Cup when he arrived. So I think that the quality wasn't matched, and the players that did come in, obviously some of the younger guys like Jack McGlynn, it took them some time. And as Madeline, you said, you see that there is building blocks as well, and what can be created. So, in your perspective, probably seems very there's a very high potential of it being a really good off season and that becoming a very good 2026 season, wouldn't it, Maddie?
Yes, but I just want to hold out some, I don't want to be negative, but I think a lot of people thought last season you lose Steve, you lose Coco, you lose Hector. They thought the Dynamo was going to rebuild into this season, and that didn't happen. And now, again, you lose a whole bunch of players. You you don't necessarily clean house, but you lost some players, especially from that 2023 team. And so then it's did they learn from this year and they're going to get it together and they're going to get the players that they need? I hope they did. I hope they learned from this year and that they aren't going to try and be cheap in the off season, but who knows?
I was try to unmute myself. Yeah, you hit a really fantastic point there. And so let's start with that because I think that, you didn't say any names, but the name is there. His name is Pat Onstad. His name is Asher Mendelson. They're the ones that need to do a massive, massive, redo. And they have more than enough leeway to get it right. There's a lot of players leaving, and we'll touch on that real fast. But before naming all the players that are coming back and the ones that are gone, it is important to know that there is a lot of flexibility when it comes to the spending on the GAM and the TAM and all the mumbo jumbo MLS money that is laying around. But the team has about a $3 million, so that opens up a good amount of leeway when it comes to the players that you can bring in, of course. So we'll start with the 5 players that saw their contract options being picked up. First on the list, Madelyn's captain.
My captain.
Arthur is back. There is a lot of questions on whether he would return or not. Not necessarily because he was awful in this season, because I don't think it was necessarily true for the entirety of the season, but he did struggle in the very beginning when the team needed it. But Madelyn, how happy are you that he is coming back? And what does it mean for him to come back in this, 2026 season?
I am so happy that he came back. I didn't even I looked at the rest of the players on the list, but none of them, I didn't care who stayed, who left. As long as he was staying, I was glad. But for the team, what it means, I think you still have, even though people don't agree with me, you still have that leader in the role. You still have some stability, like someone who was such a key player. You're going to keep that. It's not like you're losing like a key player, right? So you're going to keep that key player and then bring in to build around him. And I have said it, and I think Chris said it at one point too, that Artur struggled at the beginning of the season because he was being forced to play attacking and defensively. When he can just play defensively, he's fine. He's a great player. It's when they try and stretch him too far that it makes him look like he's not a great player. So I think that's one thing that they need to get is find a player like an Ache that he can play next to and not stretch him so thin everywhere.
Yeah, I think that's really where he struggled, Juan. I think in the beginning of the season, I don't know if they were it seemed that way, right? Because you're the captain, and it seemed that they were asking him to do a lot. But it also could be that he just didn't know what to do to himself, right? It was such a big difference on the midfield. And to Madelyn's point, and he was just being stretched way too out of position. And it physically, I don't know how he didn't injure himself a lot of the times in the beginning, because he found himself just chasing the ball, doing big sprints. He got a lot of them. There's a few that I think there was one that was almost a penalty too. That on one of the games, but you just saw him do more than we tend to see him, and we understand that he's more of a connector. Juan, he's the
Yeah.
one that recovers the ball and passes it on to the more talented player, the one with
Yeah.
the better vision on the field.
Yeah.
Just your thoughts on him, and we're spending more time on him being the captain, being a player, and there's going to be some that we're going to fly through, and then there's going to be some that we'll talk a little more in detail as well.
Yeah, I mean, Arthur for me is one of those players that you can't. He can play a single pivot, right? But for that to work, you would need that 4-3-3 shape, right? And we didn't really see that from the Dynamo. It was always in the beginning him and Jack McGlynn, and Jack McGlynn definitely showed right out the gate that he had some offensive capabilities, right? And we saw that against FC Dallas. He was like literally moving up further as the team was pushing for goals. But I felt like what separates Jack McGlynn from Achache is the defensive maturity, right? Achache wasn't the best defensively, right? But at least he was mature enough to know when to step back to that double pivot and, let Artur, maybe step even a little deeper, give him more time to recover the ball and then spread it out. I felt like this year teams were aware that Jack McGlynn wasn't the best defensively. So they just went full on press the back, press Artur. Don't let him distribute to Jack McGlynn to cross into the box, right? And even then, I still feel like Artur progressed as the season went on. But, I mean, when we're looking at tight margins when it came to the playoff spot, like that game against FC Dallas in the beginning where you were winning 1-0, right? And those mistakes, those cost you. Inter Miami was a tough one. There was plenty of moments throughout the season where I felt like if a couple plays went our way from either Artur or the back line, where they were as press resistant as they were the year before, felt like maybe there would have been a chance of making the play-in. So that really stings. But if you look at the work as a whole, it wasn't that bad, and I'm glad they extended the contract option.
Absolutely.
Something Juan brought up though is that he did talk about the back line, and I think that's so important to note when we think about this season is how much that back line was constantly changing compared to the seasons before. There was a locked-in back line, and Dynamo was one of the best defensive teams ever, or not ever, sorry, in MLS, one of the best defensive teams in MLS for that season. And it was always talked about on the Apple TV broadcast, but we don't see that. We did not see that this season because the backline was a revolving door. So I think that's so important to note even though this season is technically seen as a failure, it went so bad because the back line wasn't there to kind of like be a net catching the team.
Yeah, and I guess a player that was there consistently, basically, in the defensive line was another guy that saw his contract option, which is, fan favorite Griffin Dorsey. We know how good he could be. His numbers weren't as great this year. He definitely struggled, specifically because he's asked, right, to be that attacking winger on the right hand side. And while he gives you full on effort, he's a workhorse going, the entire right side of the field, defending, attacking. But one thing that he struggled, and this is not new, he's done it in the past, his finishing when it came to the crossing, he really, really struggled. And something that I wouldn't say they rely on, because a lot of the times they try to build from the middle, right? Whether it was Coco or it was Jack McGlynn to pivot and kind of dribble through the middle. What you're asking of Griffin is to open up the field and send in those crosses, look for Ezequiel Ponce, and it just didn't happen. And you saw that a lot from him this year. I know that I couldn't watch the game live because it was 3 a.m. whenever I was in England, so I had to rewatch it later on. And even in that game, there was time that he had already taken the defender on. He's open. Instead of crossing it, he decides to cut back, and it was like, I mean, a season, things you saw the entire season from him. But that doesn't say that you just take that specific time. I mean, you have to take his entire career with the Dynamo has been such a good one. And we all know when Griffin is on, Griffin is on. So whenever it comes to those club options, those are very difficult to say no to. when you know how good they are. And obviously, the fan base is behind in Arthur and behind it Dorsey. So those are big names that you just can't allow to give. Madelyn, Juan, feel free to, again, Griffin Dorsey is another big name out here that it gets his contract for 2026.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that. But I wasn't going to be surprised if he did choose to leave because he has been here a minute. This season, at one point, he was definitely fighting for a spot. Who was he fighting for a spot against? Because there was a little bit he wasn't in the lineup. And was it Andrade?
Yeah, it was Andrade and it was Franco Escobar a couple times. Like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know if they saw like the skills were decreasing, but they think they can get him back, or maybe it was like a fan move.
You know, to your point, I was one of those that always spoke about maybe this is Griffin's last year, and it wasn't because he didn't deserve to come back, but as you mentioned, I feel that it gets to the point that you've been here for such a long time. Sometimes you need a challenge, and it doesn't seem like he was really getting challenged enough here, right? Now, especially with the guys that aren't there, he's once again the only right back in the team. So it kind of goes to he's going to start, right? There's really nobody else that can challenge that. And no matter how good you are or how bad you are, you do need to create that competition, Juan.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Dorsey is a very peculiar case, right? Because we all saw 2023. He was, I think, the catalyst that turned everything around. And I don't think you can understate what that meant to the franchise, like history. Like he won us a U.S. Open Cup trophy. It's that simple, right? So when you look at that, it's hard to not say yes to that type of a contract option. But then again, I feel like for me, like I mentioned earlier, the system just became so predictable, right? And there's nothing wrong with, moving your fullback up. Like everybody was doing it last year and you still see it this year in the big teams. Like it's nothing crazy to do that, right? But it can't be your only way forward on the right side, right? I feel like for me, and maybe we talk about this later, the lack of a true right winger really hurts this team and it hurts Dorsey, right? Maybe it decreases his minutes, but at least whenever he does play, it's, he offers you something different. That was what made Dorsey special. He offered you something different from the right back position. So, I'm not mad at them keeping him for next year, but that for me really relies on how can you change the look? How can you make his abilities more of a surprise rather than just the expectation?
Yeah,
I have something. I think it also goes to we didn't have a strong center back pairing really. So then when he goes up, you drop to a back three, and then your defense is even more spread out, even more stretched thin. So your defense is even weaker. And so I think that is why for at times he was not getting played, is because they needed those back four against those teams because they didn't have the defensive structure that they needed. So even him, true. It goes back to the center backs, which goes back to the revolving door.
Yeah. Another one, I do feel that even having a central midfielder, right? That for the last 2 years you had in Hector Herrera or even Coco for that sake, but it didn't feel. It felt like the team was playing hot potato. Nobody really wanted that ball. Whenever Hector was on the field, everybody knew, like the opponents knew that the ball was gonna go through Hector Herrera, and Hector Herrera was gonna hold it and look for passing lanes. There was not that here, and because of that, you're playing so rush. You can quickly get out of place, as you mentioned, with Dorsey and the defensive scheme in the back, the pairing that the chemistry just never built with the two center backs. So it was just everything that went wrong or that needed to go wrong for the Dynamo to not succeed went wrong in 2025. So, one set of good news was Nelson Quiñones finally, after 2 years, saw the pitch in that final match against Sporting Kansas City for more than 5 minutes. He played around 10 minutes. He also is a player that gets his contract option picked up. I think I can't remember who mentioned it out of YouTube, but it's important to have a player like him that can help open the field and widen it on the opposite end of Dorsey as well.
Yes.
It's going to be interesting to see how he comes back from this injury and if he still is the player. And we've talked about this time and time again, but if he's still the player he was. I don't know if the Dynamo feels some sort of. I have my theory on this, but I don't know that fans are gonna love it. But like, if the Dynamo feels some responsibility to like get him back to healthy, so then he can enter a transfer window, and they never fully like. I don't know how they feel, or we could see the player again and he'll score goals and be great. I don't
Yeah.
know, but he is definitely a question. We haven't seen him in 2 years.
And I think it's a little bit of both because, Juan, if you think about it, I mean, if he doesn't perform like you expect to perform, then you can get a new contract with him as well, way cheaper, and you can keep him around a little longer, even if you do get maybe a 75% Nelson Quinones from what you saw when he was healthy.
I mean, Nelson Quinones, I feel like at his best, he never really reached his best for the Dynamo. Even when we were talking about him, I remember Sviatchenko in a press conference said that he thinks Quinones has Premier League potential, right? I felt like everybody saw the potential. He was getting called up to the youth national team, right? So I felt like we were just starting to see that, like that peak, that pinnacle that he was going to reach, and then that injury happens, and it's just brutal, not just from a personal standpoint, but from a squad building standpoint. That's your U22. He was coming on the rise. Then he has this really complicated injury that takes 2 years. So, like Madelyn said, there's a lot of questions, but I also feel like when he came on for his cameo, he did pretty well. He felt lively. Obviously, you can tell he just came back from an injury. Like, every player is like that when they come on for the first time. It's just trying to get a scope for how it feels like. But at least to me, it felt like a similar spark was there. And obviously, coming back from that's going to be different, but I still feel like a similar spark was there that this team so desperately needs from a winger, right?
And I think a lot of the issues that he was running into, apart from setbacks, was just mentally, right? Because it's taken 2 years. I mean, it was a gruesome injury that he suffered playing with Colombia, with their youth national team, and it's as you mentioned, Juan, he was doing he picked up. I wouldn't say he was at his prime, but during that season, he started getting better before his contract. If you guys remember, before his contract ended, his loan contract, and out of nowhere, he was scoring goals and playing very well. They pick up his, they end up buying him, and he takes another of a little dip, and then he picks up once more. And then, as you mentioned, the injury happens, and I think a lot of it is very mental too, because you see also like a Lawrence Anali that goes through a injury that is devastating, especially for the wingers, right? That they rely on their speed, and in 7 months, Anali gets it back into the pitch. So it was definitely a different injury.
Yeah.
We can't compare them, but just the ability of getting mentally ready and make it a part of it, into the team once more. Before I get any further, we have one. Well, let's go ahead and finish it. Brooklyn Reigns was another guy that gets his contract picked up. No brainer. I think that we've seen Brooklyn Reigns right for the last 4 years. I think he's one of the guys that's been here almost as long as Dorsey, which they've been here a minute. But he's one of those guys that has steadily gotten better. It wasn't like a big peak of, performance getting better. I mean, this season is the most he's ever played with the Dynamo. And he played the part. I mean, you can tell that he is a very good player. And every single guy that we talked to, I know we talked to Jonathan Bond and Dorsey about a month ago at We Got Soccer, and when we asked him about Brooklyn as he was heading into the U20 World Cup, they just said that he was a talent that they haven't seen before. And so that it's eye-opening, right? And whenever you have a club option and you can pick him up and still pay him pennies on the dollar for what another team could be potentially paying him elsewhere, you definitely take it. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see him get a contract extension quicker just to up his value as well, Juan.
No, yeah, I agree. I feel like for me, Reigns was always a player I personally kept tabs on. Whenever I started covering Dynamo 2, that was when he was kind of scoping that midfield. And I guess seeing his progression, I guess for fans that have been following him for a while, it's really satisfying because I felt like 2023, he was the understudy for, I think, one of the best MLS midfields in recent memory, right? Then 2024, he makes another leap, right? But you can still tell he's not ready. And then he gets his chance in the playoffs against Seattle, right? Subs in. I felt like that was, for me, the moment where I was like, okay, he's ready now. Because for me, when he slotted in that penalty top bins, first I thought it was an accident, but I felt like even leading to that moment, I felt like he was comfortable. He was in the moment. He was making runs. And he felt comfortable with the ball. I was like, this is the player that the Dynamo have been betting on. And I was fully expecting him to make the leap 2025 with some growing pains, as always, right? With the young players, he wasn't perfect by any means, but I felt like for me, I was never too worried about Reigns. I was more worried about everybody else around him. And to say that about
That
a guy that's so young, right, and still so much more room to grow, it makes it a no-brainer to keep him on the long term, at least for me.
Yeah, as you were talking about Seattle, I was looking up and I was like, I remember him playing in like the Seattle. Why am I thinking Seattle? And it's because he stepped up big in that playoff game. And I
Yes.
remember being worried and like calling my grandma. And I was like, Coco just went out. Now we're gonna have to play this 20-year-old in the midfield. Like I'm so stressed. I was actually so stressed out for that
Yeah.
playoff game, and it ended up being even more stressful with the penalty shootout. But then after that, I was never worried about him this season.
Yeah.
He was such a like stable player in the midfield that that worry like from that Seattle game where I was like so stressed out about him and I was like, what is he gonna do? And then Ache, the oldest one on the team, goes and gets his red card. To being so worried about him to now I'm like, oh yeah, of course Brooklyn is there. Like, why is Brooklyn not starting on the games he's not starting? So yes, I was so happy to see that contract extension, especially after what we saw, like the whole U.S.'s spotlight being on him with the Under-20s World Cup, and journalists saying like, "Oh my gosh, look at this Brooklyn Reigns!" Like, and I mean, we can all talk about it, but we're all Dynamo fans. So then to see that from some other reporters like cover the U.S. Men's national team, I was like, "Yeah, that is our Brooklyn."
Yeah, exactly. And he needed that Seattle moment, and he also needed the U.S. World Cup moment, the Youth World Cup moment. I felt like for us, it was all. I guess for me, seeing him grow up, it was always, can he be physical in the midfield, right? The technicality was always there, but can he be physical? Can he take on grown men, right? And we saw it against Seattle. We saw it this year. And then when you see him playing against the players in his pool, you start thinking, hey, like maybe there's a guy that U.S. men's national team fans need to keep an eye on for, not this cycle, but the next one.
Yeah.
So that was really promising.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, like, he's a player who always plays with his heart on his jersey, and you can tell, like, he will fight for that badge, and I love that about Brooklyn.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, Juan, you made a good point, because I think a lot of people that, watch or follow, like, the academy teams or Houston Dynamo 2, for instance, they see the players, and they're like, oh, man, they're great. Throw them into the Dynamo, the first team. And if you do follow both teams, especially when you go in person and see, the Houston Dynamo 2, it's night and day. Those are boys still.
Yes, 100%.
They while they're talented and they're skillful and they can dribble and they can pass and they can shoot. You put them next to a Franco Escobar. You put them next to, I mean, any other defender that is 6'4" and are built like refrigerators. They have no chance. And to Madelyn's point, the first few starts or the first few appearances for Reigns, he struggled with that. You could tell that he was getting pushed around, and it got to the point that the few times that you saw him lose the ball, he would also lose his mental, in the sense of like he would start kicking or pushing, or he was trying to intimidate the other players in a very wrong way. And this season, you finally saw him. Well, he has gotten a little stronger, and has learned the physicality of it all. At the end of the day, it's a lot of the mental aspect of it, because there's going to be players that are going to beat you no matter what, right? They're going to be faster, they're going to be stronger than you, but you have to keep your psyche and not get over aggressive and be a Coco Carrasquilla and get a dumb red card, or be an Hector Herrera and get a dumb red card. So it's fun to see the way that he's progressed, not just on the play aspect of it, but just getting the idea of like, you're professional, like, you have to act like a professional. And so it's fun. Hopefully, again, we'll see at Brooklyn, if people want him to be here 5 years, it's not good for him to stay 5 years here. You would want him to blossom and go elsewhere, especially, for his sake. I know that he really wants to play in Europe, like pretty much every player in here in the States and in Central and South America. But all right, before we get any further on the next set of names, which will be the decline contracts for 2026, I do want to mention just, if you don't yet follow us on our social media platforms, please feel free to do so. You can find us at Bayou City Soccer, pretty much every platform, from X, from Instagram, from Facebook, from Threads, Blue Sky, everything that is out there, you will probably find us. I know there is a TikTok. There is no TikToks out there yet, but
we're going to work on that.
That's going to be a 2026 project at this rate. But yeah, whatever way you use your social media platform of choice, definitely follow us. And of course, I would not do us justice if I didn't tell you to go check out BayouCitySoccer.net. You can watch all or read all the articles. And apart from the articles and just words to read, there is links to our YouTube page, as you are probably on YouTube right now or X, but you can catch even the interviews and the podcast that we do there as well. Today, if you haven't already, we did get to speak. Well, Dustin got to speak to Lawrence Anali, talk to him about being a finalist for Comeback Player of the Year, which, that's a big honor to be back again after such a nasty injury. But yeah, that's out there last week. Shout out here to the Orange and Blueprint guys. There was an interview with Ryan Garris that you can listen to, as well as David Weiskarl. It's the communications, vice president. That he gave a lot of good insight of the events coming up. The first one being in December 6th. So keep an eye out for tickets for that. I'll definitely be there for that. I want to check out what they all have planned for the World Cup. So yeah, that's all the housekeeping that I had to do before I forgot. 30 minutes in, so we're halfway through. I was thinking this was going to be a long episode no matter what, just because there is a lot of information, but we're doing good time. So anything that I missed, Madelyn, that doesn't sound like I mentioned? Oh, I know exactly what I needed to mention. I do want to let you guys know that we have opened up the Bayou City Soccer community. I know we have Jeff. Jeff Strong is one of our guys in there already. I think we have a couple others, and I know that you guys are looking at me puzzled, but Dustin should be sending the link for you guys to join that Discord as well.
I was like, I think I'm on it.
Yeah.
So that way, that community, I'll tell you a little bit about it. There is a article out there that Dustin created that kind of mentions more or less what to expect. But we started another initiative. This one is one that it's a $3 a month purchase. However, it's not just a, hey, you're just funding it for funding it, right? We want to get as many people in our community as possible. And what this is doing, it's a private Discord where you can obviously chat directly with us from Bayou City Soccer. So, the people that you tend to listen to on the podcast and other fans. So you can talk about the teams that we follow, that we cover. You can always submit questions for interviews, which Jeff did submit a question. And I know Dustin did ask if Finale had found any German restaurants here in Houston that he likes. That was his question. So, and of course, there will be a mailbag article being a part of it as well. And you can kind of give us ideas, maybe feedbacks, tell us maybe what kind of stories you would want for us to work on. I know Juan has just recently joined Bayou City Soccer, so we'll put him to work, of course. So that's what we're here for, to continue to grow the community. And we know the community, the soccer community in Houston is massive. We're just trying to get them, to align with the home team. So
Yes.
Of course, getting the news for the Dynamo, for the Dash, Dynamo 2 is what we can do as we build for a massive year in 2026 with the World Cup coming. But I may not have said everything regarding the Bayou City Soccer community, but again, there's an article out there that you can go read. And if you feel touched to give and to be a part of this community, man, we will love for you to join us. You guys are always welcome to be a part of it, and kind of put your fingerprints on this community that we're continuing to grow. All right, Madelyn and Juan, I'm winded because that's what happens when you talk too much. But all right, we're gonna go into the decline contract options
Wait,
for 2020.
can we go into still negotiating first? Those two,
We can
and then
definitely
go
do
declining.
those. Let's do those.
Okay.
I'm
happy with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Come on, man. This is DJ request. Whatever you guys want, we'll go that way. Let me see. Actually, let me real fast. Jeff, I have not given a full scouting report. We're going to focus today on this since we do have a lot. I mentioned it a little bit in the beginning. Jay Hurtado obviously loves Brooklyn Reigns. And then we have, I don't know, but hello to you, Nathan's. I get that. All right. Going into the ones currently negotiating, I don't know why they didn't just say no to these guys personally. But Pablo Ortiz is one of them, and Amin Bassi. So
I am so shocked with the Pablo Ortiz. So shocked. When I saw that, I think every single podcast that I've been on, I have said, oh, absolutely, they're declining that. I talked to Pat on set, and he very much showed he's not coming back next season. So then when that article got released and it said still negotiating Pablo Ortiz, I said, why are we negotiating with a deer in headlights? That name shocked me. That was a name where I could have put $100 on it, and I was like, no, he's not coming back. So to see that, I was like, that is crazy. To still negotiate with him, and this is getting into declining players, but to negotiate with him and not Kowalczyk, that I didn't like that.
Yeah, that one was an interesting one for sure. I mean, again, if you see the way he plays, and I know that people can stare at stats all they want, but as well, just watching him physically move and handle the ball and not do a fantastic job, which actually, thank you for this, because now we have been doing report cards for players for the Houston Dynamo reviewing their season. I got to work on Pablo Ortiz. Go read that. It explains basically everything that he did wrong and basically why you should move towards not signing him for 2026. But they maybe saw something that they like. I mentioned it that, whenever they brought him in, they brought a guy that matched a lot of the traits, mostly physically of what Mikael was for the Dynamo. Yeah. Obviously not just purely being a left-footed player, but just the height, the way that the quickness. There's a lot of good things. But he also looks like a giraffe that just was born and started running, right? And it's a little bit of the Lions are going to get you. And they did. They did it quite a few times. And so I'm with you. I don't understand why exactly they did decide to, try to work with him. And then, Bassi's another guy that if you guys have listened to the stream for the last 3 years since we started, I've always been a very Bassi, I wouldn't call myself a hater because there's a lot of
You're
facts.
A Bassi hater?
Yeah. There is a hashtag Bassi sucks that I say all the time. And I mostly just to get on the nerves of Joey and Dustin. But the thing is, player like Bassi, he's another guy that he's been asked to do. They want him to be a creative number 10, and he's not there. He's not there, and because of that, I feel that it was going to be. And you mentioned Kowalczyk. It was going to be between Kowalczyk and Bassi. One of those guys was going to come in or leave, and clearly they're looking for Bassi, who tends to have better numbers than Kowalczyk, if we're being honest. But I just don't think it's this player you want for that role, and it just hasn't worked out. But Juan, we've talked a lot. Feel free to pick on Bassi or Ortiz, whoever you want. Probably Bassi, since we already talked a lot of Ortiz.
Yeah, Bassi is. I'm not gonna hate on Bassi just because I feel like he was one of the players that we brought in 2023 to change the vibe, change the team around this new style. And obviously the stats were a little bit juiced because of the penalties, but he did well. And I don't ever think he's been a bad player, right? Now, this year we saw him kind of regress, not just as a player, but because we brought in guys like Linger and Kawashik got some of his minutes as well. So, but I'm not surprised that they kept him. I feel like for me, and when you're looking at the roster, there's only like 19 players on their contract right now. So I mean, I'm not mad at it. However, at Pablo Ortiz,
Let's clarify that they're not. He's not here yet, right? They're
that's true.
working
That's
and
true.
negotiating.
That's true.
The joke that I was gonna say about Basi, they're giving him blessings or Latif's blessings. 50% contraction that he did not take. So I'm sure. I mean, Basi was making, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think he was making.
He was making a lot,
like 800,000. Like he was pretty close to a million, if not. So I'm sure they're gonna try to keep him for half of that, right? And to your point, Juan, Basi's numbers, especially if Dustin was here, he'll tell us all the stats and numbers. But the creative passing that he sustains is some of the best whenever you compare him to a lot of the DP number 10s on the on the field. And obviously, you're not paying him DP money, but yet again, you're not getting DP assists, you're not getting DP goals, and because of that, while there is value, it goes to the point of like, can you find that elsewhere for a guy that can actually create those goals and assists?
Yeah. No, I agree completely. And I think that's the main gripe with, Basi, right? Like the numbers look great. That's why I can never write him off as a player, just because like, if you look at the numbers by themselves, there's value there. There's a player that can definitely compete for a role on any MLS playoff team, right? There's no doubt about it. However, when I look at a guy like Linger, it's like it's night and day. Just because Linger, even though he didn't have like the greatest DP season, like I think he still ended up with like 10 goal contributions, right? Like half a year here, like that's not bad by any means. So I feel like for there, even though Linger wasn't, let's say, like as creative with the ball or back heel passes or that flashiness in the half spaces, like he just got the job done a little more than Basi did. So yeah, I agree. He's not under contract yet. Maybe he won't be. I think he might be getting the Latif blessing treatment now that I think about it. So, I mean, but Pablo Ortiz, I'm more mad about it, if I'm going to be completely honest. I'd like to pivot there. There's something has to be wrong for you to not, try extensively to bring back a player that is left-footed and tall like him. And I guess they're trying, right? I hope they're not.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there, again, there's a lot of good things that you could see from Ortiz.
Yes.
And obviously, if you bring him back, he's definitely not going to be a starter, right? He would be what you were hoping to be, a depth piece. And I think the big answer is because, now I guess we already exhausted a lot of what the contracts being negotiated right now. But going into the guys that were declined, I mean, you have, 5 center backs that were let go. So, if you're going to pick somebody to discuss a contract, would be a Pablo Ortiz, right? Because you understand that while he didn't do his best, we for sure know, as Madelyn mentioned in the beginning, was that center back pairing was just a mess. So if he can create some kind of chemistry or just, the repetition of playing together, and Ortiz is part of that, whether he is a depth piece, because again, as a starter, he definitely struggled. I don't think it's going to be any more magic. Madelyn, yes.
I'm gonna agree with Nathan, and everyone's not gonna like it, that I think Bartlow should have come back over Pablo. And I know there's like a whole bunch of Bartlow haters. I think even in the Discord, a whole bunch of Bayou City Bartlow haters.
I'm not gonna say any names. Rudy Segura. Raise your hand. Yeah.
But
okay.
I think he's more, at least, I'm not going to sit here and say he's a world-class center back, but I think he is a better center back than Pablo Ortiz. And maybe it's because he didn't get the minutes to, like, mess up like Pablo did, so I just saw a whole bunch of Pablo's mess ups, and then it made Ethan look better, but Yeah,
okay, let's start with the list. Steven Anor, will honestly, unfortunately for him, would never play with the first team. He played with the second team, and even with the second team, he did score some goals, but he did struggle more of the times that he was there. Older player, college player. I think that one was going to be an easy, the contract decline for him. Obafemi Owendosu, first, he was really thrown into the wolves. He was brought in as a third, fourth choice defender, center back for the team. Obviously, we know, Mikael leaves, Vyachenko's there. And then to your point of Ethan Barlow being another guy here. So I'm going to kind of put them together, being that they're center backs, and they saw a lot of time as center backs this year. I think Ethan Barlow just never took that step. And whenever Steve Clark and Hector Herrera were in the team, you could see Barlow really have to rely on the communication between them two, especially Steve Clark. And we understand that outside of the facilities and playing, they were very good friends. They did everything together, and that chemistry obviously led to what was very good in the field when they were playing together. But without that, Barlow regressed so much. His decision making was very bad at times, and as you mentioned, Madelyn, you felt that this was the year. This is I believe it was his fourth year with the Dynamo.
Wow.
And whenever you have that opportunity to take over, Eric gets hurt, Mikael's out. He should have been the guy to take over and never let that position go. But he got beat out by Femi Owendesu. And again, this is not talking bad on Owendesu, but Barlow, you expected more from him, and you never saw that. You saw him struggle every single time. And while his mistakes weren't necessarily as bad as we saw from maybe Femi, there was a few times that he would make Arthur look bad because he'll play the ball whenever there is two guys on him, and the ball would get turned over and it would end on a goal. And that happened multiple times. And while Barlow's passing is probably one of the best, to be honest, from a center back, he was a guy that could pick, in the beginning it used to be alley-oops, but we won't talk about him anymore. But wingers out wide that he was able to just, from the center back position, open up the field that way, or even through the middle lines. And we saw him get, I think he got 2 assists this year. Another guy that I did a report card for, and he got those against San Diego when they went over there and beat San Diego. So you see the potential, you see how good he could be, but it was just one good game, 3 bad ones. One good game, 3 bad ones. And for a center back, you really need more, especially with a guy as experienced as Barlow. He has, close to, I think, over 100 games in MLS. You expect a lot more, Juan, from him.
Where did he play before this?
He came from college. He got picked up. He's a first-round pick and a GA Generation Adidas contract. Again, he was like a top 4, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was like, he was, the best of the best that you can find on a draft. And again, I think a lot of you can see how good he can be, but he's just not consistent enough to be a starting in MLS. And again, when you don't take advantage of, it's just you. It's literally just you, and you can't, play over a Femi, then you find it very difficult to justify keeping him for 2026.
Yeah, I was going to go around that similar route, Rudy. Like, the competition for center back was pretty big just because the quality just wasn't there. So it was really anybody's spot, I feel. And the fact that Barlow couldn't really squeeze himself in there, considering the flaws and just how much Eric was out for with an injury, I feel like that was pretty telling of where this was going to go. And I was someone that was pretty high on Barlow as a player, just because I feel like, the passing ability was decent, but I just felt like in the big moments, in the big games when you needed him, I just felt like he kind of hid. He wasn't the impactful player. I rarely, except for the San Diego game, that's like a one-off event. That's like Brad Smith levels of, cult heroism, right?
Yeah.
So,
last minute goals and you win the game and get 3 points.
Exactly.
Brad.
And, most people forget, right? But we don't. But even then, like, that isn't enough to keep you on the team for next year. So I wish him the best. There was talent there, but like you said, Rudy, it's just too many inconsistencies in the position that you need the most consistency in.
And like Madelyn, I'm a big Barlow fan. If we're being fair, we're being honest. When I started doing covering the team, doing media, he was the first guy I interviewed. So it goes way back into the point of like learning to know him. Obviously rooting for him as somebody that comes from college. Obviously, his resume was so good, right? Coming into the Dynamo, and you saw him kind of slowly, get into the team. Another thing is he suffered a lot from injuries. Concussions was a massive thing for him. And I mean, nowadays, anything that has to do with a head injury, it's another thing you have to really take into consideration as well. But again, I don't want to say it's hate. I love Ethan Barlow, and I hope that he continues his career in the MLS or in the top tier. He's still pretty young. I mean, he's 25, 26. So, that he has the but at this point, it's like it's one of those guys that you love him, but you do have to move away sometimes. You have to let him, find challenge elsewhere.
Yes.
But if we're picking between him and Ortiz, I mean, I'm with you guys. I feel like you keep Barlow and not Ortiz. But if they both have to go, I know Pat probably doesn't listen to this podcast, but just go ahead and not sign that contract, man.
I wonder if they think because Pablo is so young and he does have like the physique and maybe the abilities physically, they think they can shape him into a better center back, and they know that they won't be relying on him next season because they have the Antonio Carlos.
It could be the physical traits that I mentioned, right? It's just he's faster, he's taller, he's stronger, and so like anything, like it's like when you boyfriend or girlfriend, you always feel you can change that person, right? And then we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out maybe that's not the case, right? Toxic relationships do exist here.
Yeah, who knows?
I
wonder if he drops down to Dynamo too. Is he still young enough for that?
I mean, Femi was like 24, right?
Yeah, no, I think Pablo he looks younger than he is. I believe he's like 26, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I think he's 25.
Really? He's that old?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why
I thought he was younger than that.
No, right.
I thought he was holding an under 22 spot.
No. Shoot, if they did, man, we need Pat Onstad out banners.
Oh yeah. We're having a different conversation right now if that's the case.
But we'll keep going down the list. We're doing good time. We're definitely going to be past an hour, and that's okay. This is what this episode is about. Eric Duenas is a guy that I felt like, man, he came out of nowhere. I mean, I remember talking to him, and he was so excited, and he called Hector Herrera and was like, hey, I'm going to take your numbers, procedures. And we never saw him really make a dent.
I was so happy for Eric. And I thought we were going to see so much more from him. And even when we saw him in the San Diego game, I liked what I saw from him. But then in Dynamo 2, when I saw him, it was just like, oh, he's just a player. Like, he doesn't really stand out here.
I'm sharing the comments by Dago. It said Pablo Ortiz is an abusive, toxic boyfriend to the Dynamo. Yep, absolutely, man. That's what I'm telling you. But Eric Duenas.
But also, I saw that coming.
And he struggled. Yeah, he was posting like he was
a bunch of LAFC stuff.
He wanted to go back. And he did struggle with D2. I mean, honestly, he never really played very well. And it's one of those that, he's very young. He's 20 years old. So again, you expect a lot from that homegrown. And I think it was, as you mentioned, Madelyn, maybe homesick, maybe he just obviously didn't really fit in, didn't get the playing time that he expected. And eventually he asked to play more with Dynamo 2. And he was getting that opportunities and wasn't really making a difference. So, it was surprising. I really thought that we're going to pick up his option, to be honest, just because of how young he is and how the MLS experience he has. I mean, he is, a guy that you're not paying him a ton of money as well till your salary cap, and he's American. So, there's a lot of things that you take into account there. But I mean, if you're basically, I mean, that's a deal right there. Someone's giving you a deal, and for them not to take it, maybe there's red flags that we're not seeing or we didn't get to see, outside the field. Michael Holiday is another guy too that was his option was declined. He's a guy that really struggled. He got to play with Dynamo too, but man, I saw him a bunch of times live. And he was just a hothead, to be honest. Like, he was always picking fights. He was always getting yellow cards. And he just let that completely knock him off his game. And I was hoping that he would be the one to push, for Griffin Dorsey's spot, just competition-wise. And he, again, never really did much of that. And that's a guy, Eric Duenas, Holiday, not guys that we really saw much. But Next guy, Kovalchik. I think he's a fan favorite as well. I mean, I was a big Sebas fan. Again, I felt that the issue here that we're running into, especially after the guys that we already talked, to death, that they left in the midfield. Kovalchik and Bassi were very similar and a little different, if we're being honest. Like, because people were like, no, they're completely different players, but they did a lot of the same stuff. And I like Kovalchik more because
I do too.
He wasn't afraid to shoot the ball and take some people on. And on the other hand, Bassi was a guy to not necessarily shoot the ball, but look more of the passing lane. So they were a little different, but they did a lot of the same thing. So whether whoever was playing, you didn't really notice a big difference, if that's being fair. But I'm with you. I know, Madelyn, you mentioned it. Kovalchik, I feel like he could have probably be the one getting, his contract being negotiated right now instead of Bassi.
Yeah, that one broke my heart a little bit because, I fell in love with the team in 2023 and he was such a good player, a big player. Then to see that one, I was like, oh, that one hurts a little bit. But yeah, I guess it was his time to go. That one makes me sad. It's going to be sad to not see him. Because even when he wasn't playing, he was consistently on the bench. He was consistently stopping for fans. Being active on social media. So it's just that one I'm sad to see go. But I mean, like you said, like him and Bassi are kind of similar players. So it's like we're not missing much player wise. And then you also have you have the Linger, you have the Anales, you have the wingers that you need. So you're not really missing much actually player wise, but I'm gonna miss him as a person.
Yeah, and Jay mentions that it's like I remember that banger he scored last year. And honestly, I mean, he was one of the guys that was asked to play out of position. And I don't want to say that's the Ben Olsen thing. I think Ben Olsen just tries to put the best player that he has, and he trusted. I mean, it's a lot of trust, right, that you have to do whenever you play somebody out of position. And Kovalchik did a fantastic job playing as a false nine.
Nine.
I remember that, guys. Oof.
He got so much hate for it too. People were like, "Oh my gosh, why is he not scoring goals?" Oh, because he's a false nine, not a real nine.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, and he was feisty enough to fight. I mean, the guy. I when I first saw him, and even last year more than this year, I was like, if Kovalchik was 2 inches taller. He was always there to reach every ball, and he was just always 2 inches away from getting that ball. But because the hustle was there, he was nonstop, high motor guy, and again, not afraid of taking guys much bigger than him and taking just shots from outside the box and scoring some bangers, as Jay mentions here. But Damian Lowe was the guy that got picked up and never got any playing time. We'll do keep Jamaica in our thoughts and prayers because they're about to get hit by a massive hurricane today or tomorrow. Oh. But man, unfortunately, I was excited whenever they signed him and kind of obviously know some of the he was in MLS. He had spent time with Philadelphia and playing in the US in general. And in the championship as well. He was a guy that I was like, man, this guy could be good. And then, during his time in Houston, never really played or didn't play. And he was going to play with Jamaica and was doing fantastic. And I'm like, man, that's exactly what you need. You need a center back that can just be steady and, be the leader in the back. And it was odd not to see him play. And another one was Sergio Santos too, right? He gets to play very limited. It looked like he played a little bit, got injured, missed a few games, and then comes in and scores a goal on that really hectic San Diego match. That was just weird. Like 8 goals in 5 minutes, basically.
It was a fever dream, Rudy.
Yeah. So I mean, and Sergio Santos, we knew, he's a very good player, but he was going to be very expensive to keep, I believe. I'm looking him up right now, and I think he was making over $1 million. Yeah, or he was at $940,000. So he was making a pretty penny. And if you kept his contract, you would have to pay him that. So, would not be surprised if they tried to work. I know it wasn't mentioned on the email, but I would not be surprised if they do try to talk to him, as a free agent. and see if he would want to come back and obviously get a pretty good pay cut for sure.
Those were the two that we signed in the summer, right?
Yes, towards the end, right before and you can throw Antonio Carlos in there, but Antonio Carlos has a contract for 2026. All right, this is gonna. You're talking about people that make you cry. Daniel Steres, man, my guy, Daniel Steres. I'm a
Dan.
I'm a massive fan of players like Dan because he knew his role. He knew he was a depth piece. He knew he was a veteran player that wasn't probably going to see the field much, and from the very beginning, he played center back his whole entire life. And Ben Olsen decides to put him as a left center back. So try to favor his left foot. And then he out of nowhere becomes a left back, right? And then maybe a right back. Yes. I mean, honestly, he played forward. He scored against Galaxy, if you guys remember last
season. My gosh, I mean, stands. What a moment.
That's a core memory, man.
It's one of those guys that whatever you tell him, whatever role you ask of him, he's going to do it. And those are the type of players you really need on this team. And I really think that his leg, he didn't get a lot of playing time this year. It was never really stated. I mean, he did come in the injury report every now and then, but talking to Ben, I either a pre or a post-game match, he mentioned how Daniel had been dealing with a hip injury that I guess it was limited a lot of his playing time. And so because of that, we really didn't see him and really get to say goodbye, right? Do his farewell tour with the Dynamo. And because of that, I'm saddened. I hope that we can get a player like him, that they can definitely be just a team player, man, a guy that put the team first. And because of that, guys like him is going to be missed. And another guy is Junior Russo. Yes, his age is like, man, he's like almost 37 by the time next season comes around. But the guy does not look like a 37-year-old when he's on the field. He's everywhere. And but here it comes. I feel that between him and Arthur it was the same type of role. So whoever you picked, the other guy wasn't going to make it. In this case, Urso was that. But anything that you guys want to add on Daniel Steres or Urso?
Dan, I felt like he also brought like a calming presence. He was never going to be like a captain, but in the way of like his maturity, he brought that to the field. And I like that. I was never really stressed about him where he was playing. He kind of did what he needed to do. Like you said, he was a team player. And then, that goal against the Galaxy was such a cool moment to be in supporters section. I think that was my first game in supporters section too. And to be there was absolutely wild. So he did give us some great moments. And there was a banger against San Jose last season too that he scored. And Ben was like, I didn't even know Dan could do that. And Dan was like, yeah. But yeah.
I remember that. Steres, I think, for me, was one of those players, like you both said, was just a calming presence for the team. And I'll always appreciate what he did for the Dynamo, again, for that 2023 team. But actually, I wanted to circle back on Kowalczyk, just one last little thing on him. I think the reason why we didn't keep him and we kept Bassi instead is because I think Kowalczyk is closer to a guy like Linger than he is to Bassi. And if we're looking at the team, right, who are you paying more, Linger or Bassi? And I think you're paying Linger more. So whose minutes would you want to like cut more into? Is it Bassi or is it Linger? Because I think those are two different profiles, similar players, but two different profiles. So as much as it sucks to see, I think maybe perhaps a better player leave, I think that one's purely a stylistic fit and getting the most out of the money you're spending to get the most amount of minutes on your players. So that's why I think they made that move with Kowalczyk.
Yeah, and just to finish off Dan thing that you mentioned about that banger, I remember talking to him and saying, like, basically telling, because he scored with his left foot, and we know he's not left-footed, and I kind of mentioned, like, man, it looked like he kind of missed, it looked awkward. And he's like, no, man, I hit that dead on, and he was very serious, and I was like, all right, I was kind of making a joke, but I'm sorry, I did not want to be disrespectful, so I thought it was funny. But so another guy still in I guess the Dynamo roster, but out on loan is Kieran Sargent, the homegrown. I mean, he played some time with Dynamo too. He really did struggle. It looks like he's having a decent time out on loan in Lexington, South Carolina. So we'll see. I know that he has a club option for 2026 and 2027. They don't mention obviously because I think Lexington is still in the playoffs. So maybe once that's over, they'll decide whether they keep him or not. I'm gonna say that he does not come back, just because, again, he just didn't seem like he would fit the part, especially now that you have Andrade and possibly another left back coming in later on. Players that were fully out of contract, there was only 3 of them. Franco Escobar, which, I mean, it's either love or hate Escobar, but I would say 90%
I
of the
don't think
people love
anyone
him.
hates him.
Some people did, just
Yeah.
because he's a little hot-headed and he would always find a way. But I mean, you have to love the passion and
No
the way
one,
that he
but
approached.
everyone I talked to was like, "Oh, he's hot-headed," but we love that about him. Like we love
Yeah.
the passion. So I don't even think a ton of people even use this hot head to his disadvantage. Except it was like sometimes like he has a hot head and maybe gets a red card, right? Then it's like,
Yeah.
come on, be smarter. But besides that, I don't think I've met a soul that did not like Franco.
Right. Yeah, I love Franco. I
Yeah.
feel I always said, like, you need another 10 Francos and you win every game. Just the way that he approached the game. But going into the season, obviously he had another guy that was out of position, right? Because he wasn't going to beat out Griffin Dorsey, but he did a really good job playing as a left back. That's where Dan found himself being the depth behind Franco Escobar. And then Escobar eventually, his performances were all very good, but Felipe Andrade was coming in hot and eventually,
Yes.
push him out of the position there for a little bit in and out, especially during Leagues Cup. And then eventually Franco Escobar gets injured. It looked like kind of like a gruesome injury. He does come back to the bench, and then out of nowhere, he disappears for 2 months with an illness. That's all we knew. And all I kept seeing was him playing, FIFA on PlayStation. So his commitment, I don't know if it was necessarily there. You never really saw him post anything about the games kind of happening with the Dynamo. I think he was already checked out. And I mean, this guy's a player that everywhere he goes, he wins something. And he did, right? He helped the Dynamo win their second U.S. Open Cup in history. So maybe he was already done. He was like, this is it. My contract's over. Let's move on.
Yeah.
We know that in the past, Inter Miami has come knocking. So would not be surprised if he stays in the league and maybe goes to either Inter Miami or he can go to Atlanta United, because it seems like Atlanta United is bringing everybody back from 2018. So those are opportunities that are there. I think everybody, again, who doesn't want 11 Franco Escobars on the field? Gabe Siegel was another guy that contract ended. I don't know. This one's funny because Gabe Siegel beat out Toyosi. And so that's interesting. And obviously the opportunities we did see Siegel come in, he did well, right? He scored a brace against New York City FC earlier in the season. I mean, when he would come in, he would do, he was dangerous for sure. And then the last one was Andrew Tarbell. With his injury, it was so unfortunate. He was set up to be the first goalkeeper. He was going to replace Steve Clark, and 4-5 games in, he tears his ACL, and that's it. And it's, again, really hard for players like that don't even get a chance to like really compete. But that business is business, and that was likely going to be the case, especially after they brought in Jonathan Bond to be the first goalkeeper, and how good Blake Gillingham played, the times that he was on goal. And of course, Pedro Cruz right there in Dynamo 2, kind of, winning all kinds of finalist awards as well. So when it comes to the goalkeepers, Houston Dynamo always tends to have a very good one. So, that's one thing that you can't really say has gone wrong or not. But anything out of, obviously we mentioned Franco, but Gabe or Tarbell that you guys want to mention?
I just want to say Franco hurt my heart a little bit to see, you have so much passion on the field, and to just watch him just check out the last 2 months. It was like, wait, I thought you liked us. Why is this? Why are you just checking out all of a sudden? No, it kind of felt like a breakup. I was like, oh, you're ghosting us. It's okay. Okay, cool. And then who else? Gabe, I wonder if they're gonna let Linger when Alessi Ponce doesn't play 90 minutes, if they're gonna let Linger switch to the 9 role, because he said so many times that he likes to play in the 9 position. Um, so I wonder if they're gonna let him do that, and maybe that's why they're like, oh, we don't need Gabe. Or if Gabe was like, I'm not getting the minutes here, maybe I can find something somewhere else. But and then Andrew, yeah, that was unfortunately with his age too. You have the injury and the age that was kind of gonna happen, and it was always gonna be at a point where like we had way too many goalkeepers because they were going down like flies, but it's like then they were all still gonna have contracts. So yeah, you had to let Andrew go, unfortunately. And I think it was interesting that they picked Blake back up. But I mean, if I were Blake, if they offered me the contract, I would have taken it.
Yes.
But I think it's interesting that they offered the contract again, because we've talked about the goalkeeper situation time and time again, and I would put Pedro over Blake. But because when you see Pedro and Dynamo, or if you see Blake in Dynamo too, he didn't play great there. I watched the Dynamo 2 game where he started in goal, and when Pedro was out doing something, and it wasn't great. But then I remember, at the beginning of the season when he got called up and he stepped up big time, and it's like, okay. So Blake, I wasn't upset that they renewed, and I wasn't upset Andrew, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a good point, but with Gabe Steagall. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There's no backup to Ezequiel Ponce. So what's gonna it's gonna be interesting. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of players that they only have 19 players currently under contract, and I go through the list real fast, as you mentioned some of them already. But you have Arthur, you have Felipe Andrade, you have Exxon Arce that we all forget. I mean, that's another winger that got injured as well, and it looks like he's declined a lot, the last year and a half under Dynamo 2. You have Jonathan Bond. You have Antonio Carlos, who I think that was a fantastic pickup.
Yes.
And if you can have Antonio Carlos healthy and a Sviatchenko healthy, which is a lot, right? I think we're going to have to pray to all Gyna gods to make that happen. But that would be your starting center back pairing. I think you would be like in very good shape if those guys are healthy week 1 of 2026. Griffin Dorsey, Lawrence Anali, Blake Gillingham, Dwayne Holmes was another guy that eventually he kind of booted Bossy for sure and relegating him to the bench. Linger, as you mentioned, Jimmy Maurer, which I think he's going to become some kind of staff role in the near future. For the Dynamo, you have Jack McGlynn, you have Toyosi Olusunya, who is on loan with Doncaster
Rover.
Yeah, so we may not see him again. I mean, I think that loan ends in the summer, and it's gonna be likely that they don't keep him. Ponce is under contract. Nelson Quiñones, as we mentioned, Brooklyn Reigns. Sebastian Rodriguez, I mean, D2, he's been spending time. He's another guy that has looked very good. Could this be his year to, kind of like the Brooklyn Reigns, get a push into the first team? Possibly. He's very talented. And then Diadi Samaseku, I believe they call him, what was his nickname? Did anybody remember? I can't remember his nickname. And then Eric Sviatchenko. Those are the guys that are all under contract. 19 players. If you guys remember correctly, you can have 30 players in total in a roster. So there's a lot of flexibility. And of course, I mean, the actual slot when it comes to the roster does kind of make a big difference in how many you can have. But just looking at the amount of players you have, you definitely will be able to play GM all off season as news start to come in on players that are picking up. And if you are very interested, I highly suggest you go check out MLS teams that are already knocked out of the playoffs and see a lot of the free agents out there that, the Dynamo could potentially pick up. Just, to get you a little excited, because at the end of the day, it's all a mystery.
Yeah, I would like to see them pick up some MLS players, because I feel like recently we've seen a lot of foreign players that they've picked up. So I would love to see some MLS players or players with the MLS experience be picked up. And a funny story that I wanted to bring up, because I told my grandma I would, is she made I made her she only uses Facebook, and I made her like the Houston Dynamo Facebook, and she made the mistake of saying, "Oh my gosh, I saw their roster got released," and then she had to hear a whole spiel about every player of the roster and how I thought, like what I thought about each player. And yeah, she made that mistake of bringing that up with me. And then my mom, who loves Artur, I was like, "Oh my gosh, Artur's contract is extended," and she was like, "Why would I know that?" And I was like, "Well, my grandma called me and asked me about the roster, and she doesn't even watch soccer." So, yeah, that was a fun time.
Everybody playing GM, huh? Everybody gets
Everyone.
excited. And that's the thing, right? Again, it is very disappointing the team does not make the playoffs. But when you saw the roster, how it was built, the people that were not doing great, the quickest way that you can get to start fixing the issues is by letting go of players and start that roster build. So I'm very excited to see what the Dynamo start doing. Obviously, December December is when the transfer window opens.
Yes.
For everybody else. Granted, they can pick up any free agent, so you'll start hearing and to your point, Maddie. Obviously, when they originally, Pat Onstad took over, and the way that he built that roster was bringing MLS experienced players. So I would not be surprised if I hope they're smart enough to realize that the formula they originally used, that secret formula from the worked. That recipe worked of bringing MLS talent and then bringing a very good piece to put out together, because that's really what was missing this year. And I think that type of recipe to play for Ben Olsen tends to work. And
yeah,
very excited for what is to come, and hopefully we get news, and hopefully before Christmas for sure get some stuff kind of happening. But anything else that you guys would like to add? I know we've talked a lot, and it's been a really good show. I hope that all the listeners have been enjoying it. I know there's been a lot of action here on the Bayou Banter, with everybody kind of giving their opinions on the players that they would have liked to see gone or stayed. So, Maddie, thanks once more for joining us. I hope you feel as optimistic as I do seeing all this roster changes.
Yeah, I do. For sure. I really do hope that they were able to learn from their mistakes last season and they can fix it, and we'll have a good 2025 season, even though I want to tell fans, like, be patient at the beginning. It might take a couple games to get that starting 11, to get those players to work together again. Do not freak out if they lose a couple of games. I know I said that at the beginning of this season. I was like, yeah, don't freak out. Like, they're just rebuilding. No, they're going to rebuild right this time, but it still might take a couple of games for everything to click. So have some patience at the beginning. We don't need to start Ben out, #Ben out, one game in before the season
started anyway.
starts.
They'll start it
anyway. You're
anyway.
going to see like a preseason practice clip and start #Ben out.
Yeah. That's true. But Juan, to Maddie's point, it is important that they get these offseason right, because otherwise, that hot seat is going to get really warm for not just Pat Onstad and Asher Mendelson, but it gets to the point that the easiest people to get cut are the coaches, right? And if people feel, and when I say people, when fans feel that Ben Olsen is not adapting to the players that he has, because people think like, it's a player, man, throw him on the field, but quality is there's tiers to this.
Yes.
And if you don't have the quality players, then there's just so much a coaching staff can do. But we have to be honest, if they don't get it right and things aren't coming their way, you are going to start hearing those ban out, pat out chants. And again, I think that it's fair if things aren't coming right for people to have those those thoughts. But at the end of the day, there's just so much potential here with what we talk about the openings and about the having $3 million for your salary cap. there's a lot of things you can do here. Now, will they sign like a Messi or a Son? We're not going to get to that point because that's never really what the Dynamo has done. They spend a lot of money on Ponce, and we know that Ponce it's not to everyone's liking, but can they get something right? Can they bring a player in? And yeah, Madelyn, I was looking at you when I said that. But can they make it work? That's all we can ask.
I mean, I feel like it really depends on the transfer structure. I mean, you can go 3 DP, 3 U22 players. I wouldn't go that route. I would go for the 2 DP, 4 U22 player slot. I feel like if you're trying to build something a little more sustainable, right? Especially with the building blocks you already have. I mean, and also you can turn Linger, I believe, into a TAM player, right? Doesn't have to be a DP.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen from Asher, and I see Dago, he's asking that question as well. Do you see the Dynamo picking up 1 or 2 DPs? I think they're going to pick up 2 DPs up. I think that they're going to have to. And I think that some of these guys are U22 initiatives that may be able to work out something that they're not that anymore, especially with some of the internationals that left. So
who's on under 22? Who's on U22s right now?
It's you have Arsu, you have Quinones, and then Nali, I believe. Those are the 3.
But I think Quinones is off U22 after this year.
Correct.
I think Asher confirmed that. So yeah, I guess that for me is why if I were the Dynamo, I would go for that extra U22. It really depends on the GM, right? There's no right or wrong answer. I think for me, with the Dynamo already having a lot of GAM to spend, just having that $3 million extra added onto that, you could really, really invest on a few top tier MLS players at some key positions.
And it would make it's going to be interesting because if they do say they go with a 3DP, right? 3DP and 3 U22s, it's going to be interesting. Will they, because not a lot of people do it, but knowing that, center backs is your issue, investing on a U22 initiative center back. Something that we really haven't seen. And I mean, that right there already puts you, I mean, you can bring somebody in quotations better than like a Mikael, right? Because Mikael was not that. They didn't spend a good amount of money to bring Mikael in.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting. Again, there's a lot of things that it's going to be fun, playing GM as things kind of unravel. And of course, if you follow Bayou City Soccer, you'll get the news as they come. And any rumors that we hear, we'll pass them along to you guys. So you guys as well can play GM. And I'm sure Dustin's already working on all the contract allocations and all that fun mumbo jumbo when it comes to the kind of the behind the scenes. Because man, salary cap, right? It's a thing. It's a thing.
It's all confusing. The finances, they get so confusing.
Yeah, tell me about it. I really feel that Inter Miami's cheating some way.
I do too.
There is some financial trick they're using somewhere to register all the DP players they have.
Yeah, come on. Suarez is like minimum veteran contracts. What is this? So I mean, who knows? But guys, it's been a really fantastic show. Thank you guys. Thank you, Juan, for joining us. Anything you want to tell the people? I mean, I know that as mentioned that you are joining us this upcoming season and writing a couple articles, and obviously you're more than welcome to join us on the podcast as well, man.
No, thank you guys for having me. I'm really buzzing to be part of Bayou City Soccer now. See a very tight-knit community for a long time, kind of the leading voice of Dynamo soccer coverage general in Houston. So yeah, I'm buzzing to get started. Excited again to be on the show with you guys. Excited to talk more in the future and to get started writing this offseason and the next season to come.
Yeah, and obviously, Madelyn, again, you've become a regular here, and you're more than welcome to continue to join us. We'll probably record once more next week, and then we'll take a little bit of a break. Probably, I don't know how long we'll go. Maybe at least till the MLS Cup it's over. That way we can go through our preseason predictions that we did, so everybody can laugh at us, right?
Yeah, that was actually one of my highlights from last season. Was I watched you guys' podcast and I watched that go down.
Yeah, and that definitely was. I'm gonna let you guys know that I picked Ezequiel Ponce to win the Golden Boot. So we already started bad right there. So we'll go through everyone's predictions and we'll get some fun out of that. But Madelyn, I know you are also taking a break because you make it to every single game basically at home and a couple on the road, and with no playoffs and just a good amount of months off, man. I hope that you get recharged, replenified, so that you are once more strong for next season, and we'll get you out talking to the fans once more.
Yes. I'm ready. I'm ready to be back. Actually, no, I need a break. It was such a long season. It was. I went through, and I think I had been to like 5 professional games before this season. And I think this season I've been to like 30 or something like that, like something crazy in between, like the Dynamo games, the MLS All Star, the Gold Cup games, the She Believes Cup. All of that, and I'm soccer now. I think Stu Holden said something the other day, like, I feel like the American soccer fans are getting, like, there's too much soccer at a point, and that's what I started to feel like at the end of the season. I was like,
there's way too many competitions. There's so many competitions, and then, like, it's funny because, like, you hear, like, people are, like, so getting to football, and, like, oh, football season's here, and obviously they don't see how, soccer in general, just like it's year long. Like it just never stops. It's never ending.
Now we still have Premier League, Champions League,
So,
and then I have my like World Cup volunteer tryouts. I have that in a couple of weeks.
There you go.
Still soccer going on.
Yeah. You touch on Premier League. Maybe I'll leave my my London stories for next week for sure, since I want to predict. I'm going to put that crystal ball that Chris tends to have. I'm going to predict there's not going to be a ton of news happening, especially when it comes to the roster. I will say, though, obviously we talked about that event coming up for the World Cup in December 6th, and one of the things that David from the Dynamo mentioned was that there was going to be some news coming out eventually with more stadium renovation. So maybe that'll be some of the next things we'll hear in the weeks to come. So, we'll figure out what that is and what all that looks like, especially with, I'll let you guys know that there's the podcast on Wednesdays for Houston Dash, and they do have one more game left. And that's another one that's been talking about whether they sell the team or not. So, keep an eye out for that, because maybe the renovations have to do something with that. Who knows? And then we should be back for Movimiento Naranja on Thursday. So that's your Houston Dynamo Spanish podcast. So hopefully everything goes well. We'll be back then. But once more, thank you guys for listening to us tonight. I know it's a lot. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you rate it. Give us 5-star. Give us 1 star, whatever, man. We take it, be negative, be positive. That's fine. If you're listening on the podcast platform, which I tend to be one of those guys. I'm a podcast feed guy. So, feel free to leave a review there too. And you can write a paragraph of what you didn't like, what you did like. I mean, 5 stars are always welcome, but we appreciate blunt honesty, so it does not necessarily hurt our feelings whatsoever. I just cry sometimes in the shower because you guys are mean, but that's neither here or there. But once again, thank you guys so much for joining us. Madelyn, Juan, thank you. And with that, we'll give back your night. We'll see you next time. Peace.